Ironically enough, all of this energy is sent back to him through Carmen, and this is again because of the law of conservation of energy, and Gumball is stating all his shame and energy are coming back to him. Gumball tanks this like a Giga Chad, and in the process eats all his 1.5 times 10 raised to the 9th joules of energy, and subsequently around 3.48 times 10 raised to the 9th watts. In true Gumball fashion, it wouldn't be complete without hurting someone other than himself, and as Gumball insults Darwin, he makes Darwin break the school wall. For an object to break a concrete wall like that, it would have to push on the wall with a force of around 20.5 times 10 raised to 6 newtons, since the tensile strength of concrete is around 150 megapascals, and the cross-sectional area that is broken is around 4 meters squared. For Gumball to have his brother break this wall, he would have to have Darwin hit the wall with a force of F equals P times SA, and assuming Darwin remains in contact with this wall for just 0.001 seconds, which is how long a standard collision will last, Gumball would have to create an impulse around 2.05 times 10 raised to the 10th newton seconds, and subsequently, since impulse is equal to the change in momentum, and Darwin's initial momentum was 0, the impulse would be equal to the momentum itself, which is, in this case, Darwin's mass times his velocity. Since we know the mass of Darwin, we can divide it by the momentum to get the velocity of Darwin, which comes out to 463,783,767 meters per second, which is more than a third faster than the speed of light. Just for Gumball to throw Darwin this far, his momentum would also have to be 2.05 times 10 raised to the 10th, due to the law of conservation of momentum. Knowing Gumball's arm is just 0.7 kilograms, taking the impulse and dividing it by Gumball's arm mass, we get that Gumball would have to throw Darwin at least 2.9 times 10 raised to the 10th meters per second for him to break the wall. Since they remain in contact for a certain period of time, the force Gumball's arm would have to throw Darwin with is around 5.13 times 10 raised to the 11th newtons. Not only can Gumball provide using his electric charge, he can also generate lift like a bird. In this scene where Gumball is falling out of an airplane, he falls a certain distance, and using the kinematics equation, he can find the terminal velocity, which comes out to 2,947.8 meters per second. Since we have this terminal velocity, we can complete with the equation for lift, that is the lift force of an object is equal to the lift coefficient times velocity squared times 1/2 rho times surface area, and we have all these values, we get that the lift force must be 1.5 times 10 raised to 6 newtons generated from Gumball's arms. Not only Gumball's arms, but his feet as well are extremely strong. Gumball, who wasn't even moving, was able to apply enough torque to a car that was just about to fall off the edge. Since the force on the car is the acceleration due to gravity times the mass of the participants inside, which would be Nicole, Richard, and Ais, and the weight of the car, the total mass comes out to around 3,196 kilograms. Multiplied by gravity, the force due to gravity is an astounding 31,960 newtons. Since the radius of the car is around 2.2 meters, and the torque is equal to the force times the radius, the torque comes out to around 70,312 torque, which is all counteracted by Gumball's foot, meaning that Gumball's foot was strong enough to counteract the force pulling down on the car, which in turn, on his day off, Gumball can exert around 31,960 newtons of force on the car from his small foot. To finally tie the knot for what I could find on Gumball's strength and power, I'd like to look at two scenes in particular. One, where the steroid-enhanced Gumball goes Ultra Instinct and stops a dodgeball, and another one where Gumball activates the stand. In the scene where Gumball stops the dodgeball thrown by Tina and catches it in almost 0 time, we can calculate how much energy, momentum, and power this would take. First, by finding the dimensions for a T-Rex, which comes out to approximately 4 meters for the length of the tail and 970 kilograms for the tail mass, we can then find the angular momentum. Angular in this case since Tina rotates her tail. She rotates this tail around pi omega times r times m, which is equal to 47,451.25 newton seconds. Since Tina's tail stops moving after she hits the ball, this is the exact momentum that she gives to the ball itself, which, when knowing that a dodgeball is around 0.0095 kilograms, and furthermore knowing that momentum is equal to velocity times mass, P equals mv, we can rearrange for velocity by dividing by mass, which in this case is 0.0095 kilograms, which gives us the speed the ball is traveling at to be 499,518 meters per second. When Gumball catches this ball, it takes him around 0.04 seconds to stop it on the high end. Since x equals dp divided by dt, and the change in momentum is the final minus the initial, and the initial momentum is the momentum of the ball beforehand, which is around 49,951 newton seconds, and the final momentum is 0, we have that the force is equal to negative 49,951 newton times seconds divided by 0.04 seconds, which gives us that the force Gumball uses to stop the ball is 1.19 times 10 raised to the 6 newtons in the opposite direction of the ball's velocity. Furthermore, we can calculate the force Gumball uses to send Tina flying by first looking at Tina and how fast she is traveling. It takes Tina around 0.16 seconds to go 5 meters, which means she's traveling around 31.25 meters per second. Tina's momentum is 127,562.5 newton times seconds, since her mass plus the dodgeball's mass is around 4,000 kilograms. Knowing this, the dodgeball would have to travel around 1,342,763.16 meters per second after leaving Gumball's hand to make Tina fly like this due to the conservation of momentum. The initial momentum is just the momentum of the dodgeball, and the final momentum is the mass of the dodgeball and Tina multiplied by the speed they are traveling at, which gets us to the number mentioned above. The mass of Gumball's arm is still 0.7 kilograms due to the law of conservation of mass, which in turn means that the speed of his arm would have to travel. He remains in contact with the first man for around 0.16 seconds. Pressure inside someone must be 1.5 times 10 raised to the 8th Newton meter squared for someone to blow up, as the tensile strength of a person's bones is around 150 megapascals. The surface area of a person is around 1.9 meters squared. Because of this, furthermore, the force must be 2.85 times 10 raised to the 8 newtons, as found by using the equation for tensile force strength, which is F equals pressure times surface area. With these values in mind, we can use the equation PV equals nRT to find the temperature Gumball must employ onto this individual to make him explode. The pressure is known, but the volume is not. Through a quick Google search, the volume of a human comes out to be around 0.0664 meters cubed, and in liters, this is around 66.4 liters. In 66.4 liters, there are approximately 2.96 moles of any gas, which is the end part for the equation PV equals nRT. Knowing the R to just be a constant and converting pressure into ATM, we can solve for temperature, as temperature equals PV divided by N times R. Substituting in all values, we get that the pressure inside someone to make them explode must be 3,994.29 Kelvin or 3,721.29 degrees Celsius. We can also find the heat energy transfer through the equation Q equals mc delta T, with the mass of an individual of this size being around 113.9 kilograms, the change in temperature being 3,691.21 Celsius, and the heat capacity being around 3.6 kilojoules divided by kilograms times Celsius. Multiplying out all values, we have that the energy transferred must be 1.5 times 10 raised to 9 joules. Finally, through using the equation for thermodynamic heat transfer, we can find out how much heat was transferred. Knowing that the equation for heat transfer is Q equals K delta capital T, capital A, lowercase t, divided by D, where D is the thickness of the material, lowercase t is the time elapsed, capital A is the surface area of contact, delta T is the change in temperature, and K is the thermal conductivity constant. We can find out how much heat was transferred. After finding all values, capital A equals 0.2925 meters squared, B equals 0.002 meters, T equals 0.16 seconds, delta capital T equals 3,964.29 Kelvin, and K equals 0.21 watts per meter times Kelvin. Crunching the numbers, we get that Gumball transfers around 19,479 heat. Now, as astounding as Gumball's physical ability is, it should be noted that from the beginning, his ability to destroy the laws of physics themselves is likely the greatest feat that any character will ever be able to do. Him being able to travel faster than the speed of light on multiple occasions is his very trump card, and everything after that is just an extra feature. Although Gumball's physical ability is astounding, even more interesting is his...
This is a date. If you can't take me on a date and I can order whatever I want, what if all that food was mine? Because I eat good at restaurants. How are we going to take it to, how are we going to be able to think? Because I just don't know. It just wasn't it.
Biology being the study of life, and mainly how the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and biochemistry being the way minute particles interact with living organisms. Gumball Watterson's biochemistry and biology are not in any means average. Gumball is a being who can shift his own DNA and shape-shift as well, likely due to his PB gene. Gumball's biochemistry furthermore allows him to change his body's chemical properties, making himself more rigid or rubbery at will. Not only this, but Gumball can also, through neurological and technological modification, take the knowledge from whoever he wants, especially where he was able to do tongue fu after being plugged into Tumblr. Gumball's cells are especially adept, with his mitochondria being much stronger than what is considered normal, his mitochondria being the place where chemiosmosis takes place, and in turn where ATP is produced as well, the powerhouse of the cell. With a normal human able to produce around around 30 ATP molecules for each glucose molecule metabolized, Gumball would have to produce much more, either through his mitochondria being able to create more ATP, or the mitochondria working harder to more efficiently render the pyruvate molecules to create more ATP. Gumball's cells are also extremely powerful, with him being able to survive, having lost almost all his weight in a scene where he is living in Mr. Brown's car, having no food or water. Gumball survives with almost zero damage despite, of course, his loss of weight and ability to function. What this means is that through his shape-shifting abilities, he was able to shrink down his organs and render his fat to almost zero, cutting down the weight of his bones and molecules entirely, so that he could use those as a food source, making him capable of very short-term hibernation. Gumball, and subsequently Darwin, have also been seen being able to shapeshift into trash cans, and are of course using this for low-level camouflage. Being able to change your entire biological structure like this would not only require conscious knowledge of the atoms and molecules as well as the proteins and enzymes which are controlling your body, but will also require the ability to manipulate DNA, which we know Gumball can do. Through this, Gumball was able to change into inanimate objects and blend in, instantly changing his body's molecules and turning them into something which would allow him to be like an inanimate object, able to blend in with the background around him. Gumball cannot change the color of his body, which would hint at the molecules themselves not all changing, but rather just reforming into, say, more unsaturated rather than saturated fats, which allow for more flexibility. Coupled with Gumball's ability to change his molecules, his ability to perfectly convert his mass into energy, whether it be kinetic or heat energy, is also part of his biology, owing to the fact that there is some mechanism which allows him to consciously alter the universe, and as well as his own body, to perfectly change the mass and molecules of his own body into energy, which allows him to blow people up. What this means is that the food Gumball is eating is perfectly converted into energy, with his extremely efficient lysosomes allowing him to digest molecules and energy without the need for other things that us normal people would have to deal with. Gumball's abilities can also be explained by his cells being able to manipulate and create DNA in the ribosomes, which allow him to consciously manipulate his genetic structure as well as atomic structure. Gumball can also create lifelike beings with Darwin, although unknown if this truly is his ability or the ability of the microwave. Gumball is able to instill the lifelike properties within an organism, the minimum requirement being a single-celled organism which needs plasmids, a cell wall, and ribosomes. These basic parts would be a minimum requirement Gumball would have to give to his so-called child. This child was then able to eat and grow through the abilities that Gumball and in turn Darwin as well gave to their son, either through the manipulation of the atoms of his own body and making them bond and create the child itself, or through a huge inburst of energy creating the child able to live and eat others. Gumball's ability to regenerate his body is also extremely interesting, with him being able to fix his wounds in just a fraction of a second, likely due to his enhanced biology helping accelerate the phases of wound healing. Gumball and subsequently Darwin as well are able to survive being in radioactive waste for a while and also live with no perceived side effects. Gumball can also change the very nature of his biology, not related to the physical characteristics of his body, but literally being able to survive without a torso, or also being able to grow new legs instantly, likely due to his ability to increase the rate of mitosis that his body goes through. Furthermore, aided by his increased depthness and biological control and DNA changing ability, Gumball's biology also allows him to copy other characters. For example, being able to become a Super Saiyan, which in turn would also mean he's able to copy the powers of the Super Saiyan and become one himself. If it isn't already apparent, Gumball will have to consciously manipulate his atoms and use immense amounts of energy, which is completely possible for him since he has perfected the E=mc² energy mass conversion perfectly. Although Gumball's biology is very impressive, it is somewhat redundant to continually talk about how he can perfectly convert energy to mass, consciously change his own biological atoms, and in turn change his atoms such that he is able to create a property that is either more rigid or more flexible in nature, so that he can use this for whichever situation may arise. Gumball's insane strength of his cells, able to emit huge amounts of energy as well as keep him alive for a long period of time, through eating himself to a point where less than a fraction of a gram is remaining for his total mass, it's very accurate to say Gumball's biology and biochemistry are no laughing matter. But instead, let's explore the nature of his mind and what causes him to be such a powerhouse of a being. Let's go into Gumball's psychology is the study of the mind and how it interacts with the environment. A very gray field, which does not have much objectivity to it, but is left to the hands of the observer. Important psychological abilities and events for Gumball, which in turn shape his very personality, would be the disappearance of Darwin and how he was brought up. In Gumball fashion, he himself is a very adamant procrastinator, with not too much book smarts if I'm being honest. I mean, his head is hollow. Gumball finds any opportunity he can to procrastinate, likely explaining why we don't see him using much of his power in the show. Furthermore, Gumball's mindset includes him being able to do hypnosis after copying it and referencing it from Darwin through the use of his biology. Being able to do hypnosis not only requires conscious knowledge of the one the hypnosis is being done on, but also extreme concentration and knowledge of what is being done. For hypnosis to be qualified by a psychologist, it would require 6 years of training. And for Gumball, he does this in around just 6 seconds. With him being able to manipulate his brother, although the real hypnosis is to be used in a therapeutic setting, GigaChad Gumball uses it anyway. Furthermore, deeper analysis of the psychology of Gumball reveals his increased attraction to risk-taking, which puts him above the pack. When Darwin almost takes over the world, Gumball's ability to ignore the safety hazards posed by many things, and in turn consciously choose to instead focus on the dangerous aspect of life, saves him from brainwashing, which can only be credited to his brain's ability, or disability, to ignore safety and prioritize fun and enjoyment, as well as prioritize being lazy over the well-being of his own body and school life. This is consistently seen, for example, when he lets Clayton take his punishment, showing that Gumball will also take the path most beneficial to him, regardless of how it may affect others. This would of course only apply to anyone outside of his, as Dom Toretto would say. Gumball's high prioritization of his family over all else is also a key factor in his strength and his biology. Furthermore, his love of family owes to his psychology as well. Gumball's psychology also shows a passion for leadership and politics, with Gumball constantly wanting to rule the world or be president of the world, showing his narcissistic personality, further enforced in the episode where Darwin, the other psychologist, analyzes his brother. Gumball's ability to lead people regardless of whether it's in a good path or not shows his confidence and charm, as well as his ability to get to the top regardless of what it may take. Finally, looking into the basic psychology of Gumball, we can look at his personality itself, showing a mix of type B and type A personality traits, more heavily leaning towards type B. In the episode where Darwin is Gumball's psychologist attempting to find the root to all the problems Gumball faces, Gumball can literally bring out all his emotions, owing to his enhanced biology and showing Darwin the literal cause of his angst. Gumball's ego is so huge that it takes over almost all of his personality, with, as we see in this episode, almost destroying the Waterson's house, as the ego is the primary and key characteristic of Gumball, where if he has his ego hurt, he can change into a different beast altogether, a characteristic which ties into Gumball's split personality. Gumball has a split personality, mainly being controlled by his ego, where if there's a threat to his ego and he wants to succeed, the ego will take control of Gumball, and in turn create something of a split personality, where Gumball's ego will control him, altering his mind and body itself, as seen by his jealousy of Leslie talking with Henry, which was a jab to his huge ego. Furthermore, apart from the basic psychology of Gumball, he sees things the way he wants to see them, regardless of what they may really be like. This can either be a characteristic of his schizophrenic personality, or even more likely just his wants and desires to ignore the reality of this world and live in its own bubble. Many times this can be seen by his own mind unconsciously blocking out things in the real world and replacing them with things he may consciously be thinking of. Examples of this would be how he sees Penny in his own vision doing the things he wants, such as perfect landing and blocking out the tragedy of the fall and doing as well. Gumball also in another episode was able to block out the entire world and bring darkness into his life, which can either be explained through his split personality being at conflict with his main personality, or rather Gumball himself unconsciously creating the world he desires through his own wants and world vision. As a side note, Gumball and Darwin as well, but mainly Gumball, can also shape the world in a literal sense, and his own world vision, as seen by getting into the fast food industry and in turn becoming one of the highest executives, gaining a mansion and fame in the process, all as a side quest going to show the strong nature of his mind and his somewhat antisocial personality, a personality which is able to conquer the world, basically the sigma male 10 raised to 10 raised to 10 repeating alien mindset. Apart from the literal psychology and nature of Gumball, he can also manifest things with his mind, literally being able to think of something and in turn have this psychological effect on his parents and brother as well as those around him. This can especially be seen, as many of you have said, in the Jumanji-like game Dodger Dare, where Anais literally felt the heat of the ground, which can be attributed to their ability to manifest physical, real things using just their psychological minds, either through Gumball's use of his insane physical and biological power, coupled with changing the chemistry of the land through just his mind, or literally altering the minds of those around him to have a similar outlook on the world as him, and seeing the world the way he does. Gumball has previously changed the world to his image, either literally through becoming a business mogul or creating a world of his own in his mind. Gumball's psychology is interesting and astounding to look at, but apart from this, we should also take a brief look at Gumball's.
Hi, I'm David Hasselhoff. With Pluto TV, you get hundreds of channels for free. Out of this world! I'll see you on Pluto TV. Head to your device's app store to get Pluto TV today, because Pluto TV is free!
Instead of including the subject with the physics portion of this video, I decided to include it as a standalone section, such that it can be looked over in much more detail and in turn show the true nature of the endurance of Gumball. At the peak of this ability, Gumball can endure the entirety of the universe's energy from the Big Bang. Gumball can absorb almost 10 raised to 68 joules of energy, which would also simultaneously mean that he could absorb and take all the energy in the universe. Just to put in reference, the number 10 raised to 68 is so large that it doesn't fit on the screen. A 1 and 68 zeros after it. Gumball's endurance and ability to take lots of damage are not only reflected as when he survived the Big Bang, but also in many other scenes. Although I did not include much math to go into these, it can be assumed that these feats are on the magnitude of 10 raised to the x. With many events he survived, being the school blowing up and sustaining minimal injuries, tanking all the energy he threw at Carmen and taking it like a Giga Chad. Furthermore, he was able to roll on the floor and not light himself on fire, nor sustain heavy injury, in part due to his extreme toughness and biological regeneration ability. Although this section has been extremely short, it should give a good insight into just how strong Gumball really is, being able to tank insane amounts of energy and damage and live through it. Apart from the physical and mainly scientific aspects of Gumball's abilities, there are also many things he can do, which cannot be explained well by the three natural sciences. An obvious example of this would be his Although I did say that this couldn't be explained by the three natural sciences, there is some physical aspect to this connection. With Darwin and this connection's strength, the only problem is that I myself cannot explain it in depth due to the math that is required to describe a wormhole. Like, look at this. What the f*** is this? Now, aside from this, I can try my best to characterize it in a non-mathy way. A wormhole is a connection between two discrete points in space that can be traveled through possibly faster than the speed of light. Gumball and Darwin's connection is reminiscent of a wormhole, with the two being able to communicate through their emotions, and Gumball making Darwin evolve indirectly. The connection the two have is extremely strong, with Gumball able to send small energy packets Darwin's way, which allowed Darwin himself to evolve. As per the comments in many of the videos on the series, it is totally possible that Gumball is sending energy Darwin's way, and is in turn the very cause of the extreme power that Darwin has, which would explain the extreme similarity Darwin has to Gumball, like Darwin also being able to go Super Saiyan and have properties which allow him to change his biology as well. This ability for Gumball to send energy Darwin's way would mean he is the cause for Darwin's power, aside from Darwin gaining and training to get power himself after he mutates. What this means is that Gumball is a being on an order many times stronger than what most might think, being able to deliver and send energy packets to Darwin, with their connection only getting stronger through the power of friendship that the two share. What this means is that Gumball has created a wormhole using his insane energy and linked this wormhole to Darwin and his connection, with Darwin being the key to all this, similar to some other characters who have main character energy and anime protagonist characters. With all this in mind, Gumball can send packets of energy to Darwin.
God. What?
Look at this and tell me how the hell she does that.
I don't care. I don't care.
I'm so curious.
I don't care. Just do your fucking job.
Essentially cloning himself and doubling his strength by creating a friend to fight alongside with him, who has all the powers of Gumball, as Gumball has shared his strength with Darwin, although not allowing Darwin to surpass him. With Gumball having extremely super speed beyond the speed of light, he has shared his energy for Darwin to create his own powers, such as Darwin's super speed. With all this in mind, Gumball is a being who is extremely powerful on the magnitude of 100 raised to the x. Aside from all this power, there are also some notable attributes and strengths of Gumball which I should mention. Although they may not be directly related to his power, they're definitely fun to look at. So let's analyze Gumball's. This section will be short. It should be fun to take a look at Gumball's skills, which may be the culmination of all these years living and his insane energy and power. Some skills of Gumball include being able to skateboard without previously knowing how to, and also the sad reality of not being able to do anything when someone is watching. which is also the reason I do my calculations when no one is around. More skills and obvious funny things would be Gumball's power of imagination, which, as Einstein said, is more important than knowledge. It's almost as if Gumball is the reincarnation of Einstein, with how much he utilizes Einstein's theories and ideas. As a side note, the very soul of Gumball is fiery and anger-fueled, as created by a jab to his ego, which seems to be the most powerful attribute of Gumball. His ego. With many more skills that Gumball has, which I can't find right now, the main ones I believe are his power of imagination, which allows him to create whatever he wants in any way that he wants, which opens almost limitless doors and opportunities for him. In my closing remarks, I'd like to bundle up all that has been said in this very long video into one short summary. The abilities of Gumball found by the use of the three big sciences are astounding, with his power to take extreme damage and also have an enhanced biology as well as physical abilities of chemistry able to change atoms and the small molecules around him. Gumball Watterson, although a procrastinator as seen by his psychology, has the PP gene for power, giving him strength unimaginable. A reference being his abilities to copy others and instantly gain new skills and learn new things. Gumball, with his narcissistic and manipulative personality, is not only a being who can influence those around him, characteristic of a politician, but his strong work ethic to achieve something he wants allows him to be able to take over the world with minimal effort. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, despite how long and maybe repetitive it was, and I hope I've been able to do a good job of characterizing just how powerful the main character of this show really is.
This sparkling water is delicious.
This blueberry really hits.
I'm starving. Fahastaha sound good?
Ooh, or ramen.
Fahalafel?
I had fahalafel for lunch.
No!
Sorry. Can I get naha?
Aha!
Circles in Minecraft, possible or not? I'm gonna push vanilla Minecraft to its limit to test if it's possible to make a real circle in Minecraft. So my friend Quiplo made a video where he made an actual circle in Minecraft, and all he did was he took a couple blocks and stacked them. Then you put a rail on top of it, and you surround this rail with a bunch of blocks that are not of full size. So you can see the chests have like a 1 pixel gap here. So you're gonna surround the rail in that. And then we're going to get some minecarts, and you just spam minecarts onto the rail. And once you place a ton of rails, you're going to break the rail right here, or a ton of minecarts, you're going to break the rail right there. You're just going to touch it real quick for a second, move around, just try and shape it, and they should sort themselves out into a circle. But that's not good enough for me. I want to find a way to build with these, such as breaking this, maybe putting some sand around the sides so that it fills in, and then, oh, the circle's gone. One thing that a lot of people forget about is that whenever sand or a block like that falls, it makes an entity of the block. And you can actually summon that. So if we summon a falling block at my location, you can see it disappears immediately. So let's give it a longer lifespan. There you go. You see, you can summon blocks like this. But the issue is whenever we type them, you see it falls and then it turns back into a normal block. However, what we can do is also give it no gravity. And now we just have a permanent floating block, just like this. Which gives me an idea. Let's try to summon a minecart, but give it a passenger of a falling block. So, passengers like this, and then inside of here, the passenger will have an ID of falling block, and it disappears immediately. Passenger will also have a time of 1, and no gravity. Alright. Now we have a block inside of a minecart. So now let's try and build that same thing from earlier. We're going to place a rail, and then go armor items, and then make a list of
Lesbian.